December 24th was probably the most significant day in my life until I was, from when I remember way back as a young'un to probably about 12 or 13 years old. It was the most magnificent day that I experienced in the entire year. It was filled with expectation. Obviously, the expectation as a child is that you get stuff and you're so excited. I remember getting certain things that preoccupied me for probably, I, I guess my parents nailed it. They got me stuff that I was totally enthralled by for months and months and months. It's, from a soccer ball to a small remote controlled car that was like on a string. And I played with this for years. I remember getting it maybe when I was 8, and I was still using it, playing with it when I was 10 or 11. Anyway, it was a very powerful, significant day, December 24th. Now I'm going to sit down because I have made some notes, and this is Eternity Part 2. And I'm going to say words, and word behind me and word in front of me. And I had to make notes because there are a lot of things that I've been thinking about today. I'm going to start by looking at a few things that I wrote down and kind of progress through my way of thinking. Eternity Part 2, December 24th, my thinking process. And my first thought today was that we are experiencing the world changing into what it's always been. And some of the things that I'm going to say, and if you have a comment, you can challenge me on things that I'm saying. I'm just coming up with things that I think about when I make work behind me. I'm starting some patterning and creating symmetries. I'm going to break the symmetries. I'm not going to stay within the confines of a system that I feel comfortable in. I like to break that which I feel comfortable in as a painter. I enjoy that. And I think in the backdrop, what I have to preamble here again is that we are in perilous times. At a time when people prefer to withdraw into their shell like turtles, withdraw into their shells of habits, of things that really make no sense ultimately to any of us. The activities we perform, most of them really have no significance to us other than we're enacting something that comes from wherever. It comes from wherever. And I was listening to a few people giving dissertations on the nature of our existence. And I always find great difficulty in people that, even if they've understood the nature of our circumstances, never transcend that sense of the external. The external world is a representation of our inner world. And if we don't do the work on an inner level, we will never be able to solve what is out there, what we experience as pleasure or difficulties. Obviously, you don't want to change your pleasures if you have them, but maybe you should even think about changing some of the pleasures you believe things you enjoy that are actually not feeding that deeper inner part of ourself. And I'm going to just sort of ramble on some of the topics that I came up with as I was reflecting on eternity on the 24th of December, one of the most significant days as I recall. It was a brilliant time for me when I was young. I just absolutely loved it. The winters in Germany were just filled with excitement and activities. And the short days actually really gave me a thrill. I don't know why. Probably because I was always told to go to sleep at 8 o'clock or something, or 8:30. I had to go to sleep early, but the shorter days made it feel like I was up all night. And I've been thinking about the world changing into what it's always been. And I think the fundamental notion behind this for me is that we're reenacting something in ourselves, or rather than reenacting, we're unable to transition into something within ourselves that will change the world into a significant, into something that significantly makes us feel better about ourselves. Because if we consider the difficulties as a species, as human beings that we inflict on each other, because we no longer, or not, maybe we did in the past, but if we did, we no longer act on that part in ourselves that actually makes the place better. Now, this is not individually, we actually do live up to our potential in different circumstances at different times, but collectively we seem to have abdicated our responsibility to act what I always refer to as conscience, that part in us that creates a sense of ourself that makes us feel good. And this is all tied into my thoughts about eternity today. And I'm just going to reflect briefly on the idea of artificial intelligence. What I think is going on, I would call it AR. AI leads to AR. Artificial intelligence leads to an artificial reality. And this is something that is going to be very difficult to handle as biological beings, because artificial, in essence, artificial is something that isn't real. Interesting, they call it artificial. AI becomes AR, an artificial reality. Is this what we want? Is this how life, even in the sense of, let's say, this Bitcoin thing that's going on, this crazy, the bubbleheads are thinking themselves to be on the winning team, speculating, investing in something that's going to, by the way, I think it's going to go way, way higher if there's any relationship to the tulip mania of 1637, which at the height of it, one of these bulbs was worth 14 years of an ordinary tradesman's wages. So you can see, just add up an ordinary wage these years, what is it, $45,000, $60,000, whatever. You're looking somewhere between $700,000 and $900,000 that Bitcoin, if it was anywhere near that level. How does this relate to eternity? I'm thinking, here's a thought I had, how to untrap, if we are trapped at this time within the confines of our culture, our Christian or Hebrew or Muslim culture, whatever those cultures, they're usually based on some sort of religious background, how we are trapped within these rituals of, ultimately, rituals of deception. And they are very cleverly based. These cultural formats are based on cosmologies. And cosmologies, if you research this, reflect each other over many epochs. They're repeated over and over again. The idea of Christianity is nothing new. The ritual of sticking a guy on a stake, the ritual of abuse that happens in order to alleviate ourselves in some way, is repeated over and over. It's quite habitual in many cultures. It's not significant just to Christians. The sun, the source of our energy, our light, our inner light, our external light, whatever, these mythologies reappear over and over again in all of cultures. And this cosmology, this culture based on cosmologies, makes us dullards. And I'm saying this from the point of view of a painter. I practice what supposedly in culture is regarded as a very high activity, but it's not practiced as such because it has now degenerated into spectacle primarily, habitual behavior and spectacle that is rooted in obsolete cosmologies. And what is obsolete, people will recognize this probably at some point, and artificial intelligence will replace the mythologies, the cosmologies, as in the zodiac and cultures in the past, Egyptian cultures, and all the secret societies that build themselves around these symbols, Isis, Horus, Osiris, and Jesus and Muhammad, and all these symbols, these artifacts of our cosmologies that is creating habitual behavior that is dysfunctional. People, it's dysfunctional. It's not working. Look around you. It's not working. I'll get to eternity. So I feel myself truly within the confines of what is accepted to be culture, a true dullard. The dullards that are the Damien Hirst and the Jeff Koons, the usual suspects. I'll bring them up because they're promoted. And the Abramoviches, the people that are geared towards spectacle of destruction and mayhem and psychological, spiritual, and even physical destruction. These are representations of our supposed higher self. Look at this Abramovich. I mean, I look at this imagery, the conjuring, the connection, the habitual connections to ritual abuses. That which is the least significant to our nature is being exalted within these artists, these people that are practicing. And now I'll come to the subject that is close to my heart. Like I say, I have romance with this idea, the idea of eternity. And art does actually reflect aspects of this notion we have as people. What this word exists, as you see behind me, the word eternity does exist. What does it, where does it come from? What does it mean? And it is significant and meaningful in terms of experience. And how can you experience eternity within a realm that in our minds is not connected to that which we imagine it to be? For example, religions always look at eternity as a bearded guy in the sky. So the idea of eternity is somehow related to longevity and some kind of existence that is beyond the real world. It's not my idea of eternity, but I'll bring it up anyway. And the sense that I have, I'm going to just sort of ruminate on some of the thoughts that come up in part 2 of this eternity dissertation, what I feel, what I think. And it is seeing myself in others. And any of these ideas or thoughts I have, if you have a comment, you can say whatever it is you want, help me out, give your own explanation to something or your disagreement with something. And to see, my first thought was to see myself in others, animate or inanimate. It ties me to something that that conjures in my mind eternity. Myself and others, animate or inanimate. And this is somewhat Kabbalistic, I think, when I say when I feel eternity, it's the union of impossibilities. Again, there is going to be contradiction within notions of what we experience to be the real world. So the possibility of having a union of impossibilities. I did some research in Kabbalah, and the idea that the highest state is to be comfortable with uncertainty. It is part of this as well, that my true nature is not within certainty, but uncertainty. And I think people should not mistake this to be waffling in any kind of way. Uncertainty in the sense that I am not threatened by something that I don't know. I embrace it in order to know. And existence in this regard becomes almost like an oxymoron. The opposites are actually the same. Again, another anomaly within this concept of eternity. And I think eternity is predicated on any kind of thought that extracts habitual, ritual, obvious notions that we have about ourselves. It's something that extends into a realm that we really are not comfortable in, but attracted to, in the best sense of the word. And in that way, it transcends the real. It's kind of like the idea of making art. Art transcends the real in a way that conjures within us a state, a perception, a feeling that is so unique and unusual that it has no reference to what we understand to be the real world. Like you're transposed by something. And I've brought this up, the idea of music. It's like if I listen to Norma's aria in Bellini's Norma, there is a conjuring of such a sublime state of something that is so rarely experienced in the real world, but obviously it is experienced if I'm having that experience, but it's rare, I suppose. It's a case of being rare. And the eternity represents itself also in the absence of doubt when you know that you don't know. Okay, and I keep, I say things that don't make sense, but this is like trying to evoke what I consider to be of value to myself in my day-to-day living, and how I will become a better person to have an effect on the world outside. This is what this is about. Like I'm making these videos to represent something of myself, the way I feel about myself, that I'm convinced will have an effect on the world outside. Not just with the work that I produce, but actually as a person. If I'm capable of dealing with this inner world, this becoming within myself, I will be able to change myself to have an effect on others and what is out there, what is that external world. My position is not one of focusing on the external world, but the inner world. This is the idea of eternity, what I'm trying to conjure here, what I'm trying to say with these thoughts that I have, that I wrote down. So that the absence of doubt, when I know that I don't know, is actually quite profound and real for me. Whenever I come to the studio, I have this sense, I have this sense that I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to get to conscience in a minute, by not knowing something and being comfortable with it, I suppose, in a sense. Meaning I don't know what the heck is going to happen at any given day. What word am I going to come up with? And just this thought on eternity, this final thought that I wrote down was that I resist by submitting. And this is, again, an anomaly, but to resist by submitting to something very important. And this is the next level, the last part in this, my eternity dissertation today. The submission is to what I always bring up, which is a simple solution to, realistically speaking, to all our problems. We're facing enormous problems as a species, as part of a system of functioning, which is, whatever you want to call it, an ecosystem, whatever level of extravagant universal understanding you want to have of this, we are part of something, a mystery. And how does this mystery affect us without us capitulating to the destructive aspect of it? And I think this is all part of it, like that creation and destruction feeling is all part of a cycle of life, but there has to be a finality to the extent that the destruction becomes everything. And we are facing enormous challenges with Fukushima, environmental changes that are caused by us, and just generally speaking, not just all by us, but the jewel in the crown, as I say, is this nuclear monster that's breathing down our neck. And the way we transition, this is my thought. These are my thoughts about being able to make a difference And with these videos, what I'm hoping to do is to find allies, people that feel the way I feel without vulgarity and aggression and blame and all the kind of usual suspects that roll them out on a carpet. Yeah, I could do that too. Like 99% of the resistance in YouTube is rolling out the carpet on all the usual suspects. But where the hell does that lead us? We're going to end up at the same place if we haven't changed within ourselves. And how does this change within myself occur? And that is what I have always referred to, that I have a choice, as in a biblical sense even, whatever that book is worth, in a biblical sense, that I have a choice. I can choose to do the right thing. And I hope you don't go into the fairy tales, biblical fairy tales and interpretations like Cain, who chose the wrong thing to do. This is all fabrications, again, by people who've taken away from us this inner knowledge and understanding of this feeling, this knowledge of what it means to be eternal. This book is attempting to give us, impart something. The best part of it anyway, in its essence, is imparting to us how we can connect to something that is larger than you or me. How do we connect to that in a real way? And not to be afraid of not knowing. That we're not doubtful about not knowing or doubtful about ourselves. So it leads to conscience. What is conscience? What is conscience in the scheme of things? And for me, conscience becomes a state of a shared joy. It's like having done the right thing allows me to share some joy with others. Notice, there is always an other. In conscience, there is an other. It's not just myself, it's always an other. And what I said in my last video, it's actually a true sense of self. This practice of doing the right thing. And it's not something that just happens because you say, oh, gee, I want to be conscious. No, I want to be a person of conscience, and bang, 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 it happens. It takes a lot of work, people. It really does take a lot of work because we have a tendency to shortcut and to have excuses. And you work for the nuclear industry, you get a paycheck and you say, I know it's wrong, but I'll take the paycheck and go home and buy myself a yacht with my excessive paycheck. You're actually making more than what they take back, so you can have a cottage and a boat and a car and 2 cars and 5 kids and 20 dogs, whatever it is that you want in your life, and everything is hunky-dory because you make that little, you just go that little bit of, well, it's more convenient to just ignore what I feel to be the right thing to do. So it becomes literally, conscience becomes an expression that is a love for all of life. This is how conscience functions within me. I sense myself to be truly attached to everything that is considered to be life, even existence. I mean, it's like a love of being alive and existing at this time. And it always seems to, in my mind, conjure up anyway the idea of goodness supersedes the depravities that surround us. So whatever state of depravity we may be experiencing, caused by the usual suspects that I could rant about and get pissed off about, but the essence of this conscience part in us allows the goodness, no matter what, allows the goodness to emerge at any given time. And in that sense, there is, in conscience, there is a gratitude to be able to serve. That if I feel I am doing something in my day-to-day life with my relationships, or whether I do it through the work that you see behind me, that you have seen behind me since I started making YouTube videos, this is what I feel. It's aiding me. I mean, I am becoming the person I can be. I don't know who I am until I've made this expression what is called a painting or any other artwork. I don't know what I can be until I do it. I can have something in my mind, but it has to be represented in the real world. And this is a gratitude that I feel in being able to practice my stuff, what I do. I feel gratitude. And ultimately, all of that which I produce is resisting any conformity. And I've mentioned this, I've said this, that conformity is that which makes us dull as human beings. Conformity is just going along to get along and doing all the things that contradict our inner voice. And I don't know why it's there. People, I have no idea why this thing actually exists in what are called human beings. And the AI, and this will be my last point, the artificial intelligence is fundamentally a platform to destroy, let me put it this way. There has been discussions how AI cannot replicate the complexity of what it means, for example, to produce a brilliant, original, elegant, beautiful work of art. AI is in its highest form just some kind of conjuring and repetition of something that has occurred before. And as an artist, I am not tied to the past in only allowing me to do what it says it has done, and that's AI. And if we go into that realm on whatever level, we are lost. Our souls will disappear in this very unpleasant representation of existence. This is the artificial reality will be caused, artificial meaning that we no longer are tied to that which gives us purpose and meaning. And AI is incapable of functioning within purpose and meaning. It doesn't work. And this is everything is being driven toward this. If you look at the Elon Musk types, the people that embrace this idea of artificial intelligence and formulate elaborate stories about space travel and even conjuring in our imagination. We're so tied up with Star Trek and going out to the stars, we don't even know what kind of existence there is beyond what we experience on this plane. What is it beyond? Does space exist? We don't have any proof other than their CGI's, computer-generated images that show one or two images of the Earth over and over again. So we don't really have, no matter how dogmatic you want to be about this, we don't have the proof we need to accept the Elon Musks in their new narrative to keep us sidetracked of what's actually happening. And that is basically, fundamentally, to destroy this part in us that still feels a sense of meaning and purpose. And the usual suspects roll out the red carpet for the Christmases and the Easters and the Ramadans and the Hanukkahs and all that stuff, and evoke all the mythologies that have been repeated over and over again. This is nothing new. We have this all at our fingertips, but we choose not to go for the solution, the simple solution, and that is to verify everything against that part in us which needs to build. It takes work, which is our conscience. So my thoughts on eternity on December the 24th, my best wishes. It's not about December 24th or April 1st, Fool's Day, or whatever day you want to make special. Every day is a gift. It's special. And all my best to all of you on every day. And especially today, and tomorrow it'll be especially tomorrow.